Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1071. You won't dare to kill me. Ha! I saw that young master's weapon is extraordinary, and so had the thought of making a friend. Sima Shang said with a light chuckle. I wonder if young master has an invitation letter? Invitation letter? No. Do I have to have that thing? Jun Moxie said in a somewhat annoyed manner. This fellow was an expert with Sky Xian abilities. How was he so blind? Can't he see that this young master cannot be bothered to talk to him? So it's a person without any invitation letter. Sima Shang completely relaxed. Since he doesn't have an invitation letter and does not even seem to know what it meant to carry an invitation letter, that means that he is definitely a minor character. At the very least, he's not the descendant of some great figure. In that case, this old master will not have anything to worry about. Smirking lightly, he roared, "Dongade foul-mouthed little brat. How dare you talk to this old master like that? You don't even have an invitation letter and you dare to act loftily in front of this daddy? Fine then. This old master has taken a liking to the dress on that lass beside you. Tell her to take it off right now. Immediately." The moment Sima Shang's words rang out, the entire inn fell silent. Those words were a little too overboard, isn't it? Even the girl beside Sima Shang widened her eyes with shock. I only said that I liked that dress. You could have just asked them where she bought it from, and that would be enough. How could you talk like that? To think that you even asked a young girl to take off her clothes in public? That means that you have not only taken a liking to the dress, but to the person as well. Are you hoping to get both the girl and the dress? Truthfully, Sima Shang was exactly hoping for this. From the moment he laid eyes on that country-toppling beauty, he already had the thought in his heart. It was just that he saw that the demeanor of the two youngsters was extraordinary, which was why he hadn't dared to move rashly and had instead used the excuse of befriending to test them. When he found out that the two didn't have any invitation letters and didn't even know what the invitation letters meant. At this time, the people who don't even know what the invitation letter was were either bumpkins of commoners. In that moment, he decided that as long as he gave the two little fellows a good scare, they would definitely submit, and he could take the beauty with him to Tian. With such a beauty by his side, he would certainly gain a great amount of face. In fact, it wouldn't be a problem even if he killed that little gigolo. Even if that kid had some backing, it wouldn't be anything notable. With his status as a peak Sky Xian expert, even if he killed a few people, it wouldn't mean anything to him. Jun Moxie's face was instantly filled with killing intent as he raised his brows. He wasn't planning on creating any trouble, but trouble still came looking for him. Young Master Jun's eyes turned cold as he looked at that peak Sky Xian Sima Shang. Are you sure of those words? Sima Shang was a Sky Xian expert, and naturally had great awareness. He could feel the shocking aura of the opponent, and some parts of his body even turned cold. But as he looked at the red copper invitation letter in his hand, his courage rose as he sneered. Why? Little gigolo, do you have an opinion? Snorting coldly, he continued. In this 1,000-li area of Tianxiang, the words of I, Sima Shang, am the law. Do you dare to defy me? Jun Moxie laughed lightly as a dense killing intent appeared on his face. The law? So the law around here is to demand for a lady to strip off her clothes in public. Today, I've truly gotten a huge eye-opening experience. Green Hunter did not say anything from start to end, only sitting there with a slight smile, allowing Jun Moxie to handle the matter. If it was in the past, with her character, this Lord Sima would have turned into a corpse by now. In fact, she would even kill her way to his family, wiping them out until blood flowed like a river. Even that would not be enough to quell her anger. But now that she had Jun Moxie by her side, although Green Hunter was still incredibly enraged, she did not display any emotions on the surface, allowing her man to handle everything. Simply because I'm his woman now. Everything about me will be left up to him to decide. At this time, the other Sky Xian experts also stood up hesitantly towards Sima Shang's behavior. All of them also felt somewhat uncomfortable. But because of the other's strength, they didn't dare to say much even though they were enraged. One of them cleared his throat and said, "Lord Sima, everyone is roaming the pugilistic world, and there's bound to be misunderstandings no matter what. Let's talk things over and forget about the unpleasant stuff with a laugh. Even if there's any serious disagreements, it's fine to just fight it out, but to force a girl to strip in public is truly a little overboard." Sima Shang shifted his eye and snorted coldly. "Oh, does that mean you're teaching me what to do now?" That Sky Xian expert instantly felt a rush of anger in his chest. Lord Sima is a peak Sky Xian expert, and also a person who had received a red copper invitation letter. How could this one dare to say the words teaching? However, all of us are here because of Lord Jun's invitation. If we were to cause trouble along the way, it would be bad if Lord Jun found out about it. What kind of person is Lord Jun that he would care about this kind of minor matter? Sima Shang snorted and said. But when the other person mentioned the name Lord Jun, his forceful stance softened considerably. However, he still did not intend to let the two small characters off. Especially this sweet-looking girl who would cause a ball of fire to rise in anyone's hearts just by looking at her, let alone hugging her in their arms. And the best thing was that there wasn't any powerful faction backing her. How could this kind of beauty be something that this little gigolo was worthy of possessing? Only I, Lord Sima, am worthy of such a beautiful plaything. Jun Moxie chuckled coldly. Since you want my woman to take off her clothes, what are you waiting for? Come then. Young Master Jun crossed his legs in a leisurely manner as he stretched out his hand. In an instant, a powerful suction force appeared from him. Although this suction force was strong, it was only concentrated on Sima Shang alone. Even the people who were standing right beside him did not feel the slightest breeze. Under the disbelieving eyes of the crowd, this peak Sky Xian expert who had been acting so arrogantly was suddenly lifted helplessly into the air and pulled towards Jun Moxie. A look of absolute terror appeared on Sima Shang's face, but he couldn't even utter a single word. Jun Moxie had already sealed off the space around him, stopping him from speaking. Even the hairs on his body was frozen on the spot. The faces of the crowd instantly changed. Looking at Jun Moxie's outstretched hand and Sima Shang flying helplessly through the air, everyone felt as if they were hallucinating. Telekinesis, and the target being controlled was even a peak Sky Xian expert. What kind of profound cultivation was that? This level of strength had already far surpassed the knowledge of the crowd long ago, and they completely had not even heard of such a mysterious technique. When a real expert revealed their hand, it was obvious with a glance. Sima Shang, who had been caught, instantly knew that he had smashed his foot against an iron board this time. Although he still didn't know what kind of methods the other was using, but it was clear that such a character was definitely not someone that he could offend. But even though he was feeling incredibly fearful in his heart, he was still confident in the trump card in his hands. With that trump card, he was sure that the other person would not hurt him. because he was holding the invitation letter that the evil monarch himself had sent to him. In this current era, not many people would dare to defy that legendary evil monarch. Although this brat was powerful and had unfathomable cultivation, but even if he was a person from the three holy lands, he would still need to fear the evil monarch. Sima Shang's body floated past the three tables between them, finally coming to a stop before Jun Moxie's table. When his feet touched the ground, Sima Shang instantly felt that he had regained his movement. The other party had clearly dismissed the strange suppression energy on him. This Lord Sima, whose words are the law around here, kneel down for me immediately. Jun Moxie glanced over and in an instant, a terrifying aura crashed down. Sima Shang felt like his body, which had regained its movements, had suddenly turned as heavy as if a mountain was set upon his shoulders. Without the ability to resist at all, his legs softened and he plopped down heavily onto the ground on both knees. Now, tell me, do you still want my woman to take off her clothes for you? Jun Moxie used a foot and lifted up Sima Shang's chin, raising his head. Tapping the side of his shoe against that old greasy face, he asked with a disdainful expression. Humiliation. Absolute humiliation. But no one present found anything strange about this scene. The other party had such great power, so how would he be polite towards this Sima Shang who dared to be rude to his woman? Doing only this to him was rather merciful already. It was this little one who had eyes but failed to see empty tie. Speaking wrong. It is easy to kill, but there's no need to go overboard when the purpose has already been achieved. However, does Mr. really dare to kill me? Sima Shang's face was completely pale, and sweat rolled down his face. However, he still grasped desperately to the life-saving straw in his hand, and attempted to struggle against death. Even at this point, you think that I won't dare to kill you? I really wonder where your confidence comes from. For the sake of your guts alone, I'll send you off cleanly. The Yellow Springs is long and winding. Have a good journey. Jun Moxie lifted his brows and said in a good-humored manner as he looked at this Sima Shang. From the moment this fellow said he wanted his Qian Sun to take off her clothes, Jun Moxie had already sentenced him to death. Young Master Jun truly did not know if there was anybody in this world that he didn't dare to kill. Even if the other party was the 14th young master, as long as he could kill the person, he would kill. Not to mention a mere Sima Shang that was no stronger than a mere ant. You dare? I'm a guest of Lord Jun. I have an invitation letter from Lord Jun. You cannot kill me. Sima Shang could feel the growing killing intent from the other's body, and suddenly remembered that the latter didn't seem to know about the significance of the invitation letters. In a moment of panic, he cried out and gripped the bronze letter in his hand tightly. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1072. Kill. A guest of Lord Jun. Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows. I wonder what kind of power and influence this Lord Jun has that I cannot kill his guests. The evil monarch. Sima Shang howled in a hoarse voice. I admit that you are indeed very strong. But even if you're stronger, can you be stronger than the evil monarch? Lord Jun Moxie. Evil monarch. Lord Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie was completely stunned as he rubbed his nose and turned around to look at Green Hunter. Seeing the look on his face, she could not help but to turn her head away and burst out laughing. Feck. This daddy is right here. But this fellow is using my name to threaten me? And using his power and influence to force his own wife to strip. This was no longer just a simple joke. The letter you're holding in your hand was sent by the evil monarch. Jun Moxie? Jun Moxie's face turned rather unsightly. Indeed. Sima Shang smirked proudly. From the looks of it, although this fellow was strong, he still didn't dare to offend the evil monarch. Raising his head, he snorted. Hurry and let me go. I'm a guest that Lord Evil Monarch invited fervently. I'm a person with a red copper invitation letter. Do you know what that means? Jun Moxie did not bother to respond, and only waved his hand. The red copper-colored letter in Sima Shang's hand instantly floated up into his hand. After reading through it carefully, he could not help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Green Hunter also turned her head over curiously. There was only one sentence on the invitation letter. On the 15th day of the 6th month, the evil monarch's reign will be established. The sovereign will descend, uniting the pugilistic world. The evil monarch's faction establishment? Jun Moxie furrowed his brows. In just an instant, he could already understand the situation. This was undoubtedly Mei Shuiyan's work. In this world, the person who could be said to understand Jun Moxie the most was Mei Shuiyan. From the looks of it, Mei Shuiyan must have already managed to raise the strength of everyone in Tian Fa to a suitably high level after she brought the spirit vein fragments back. Furthermore, she should have also ensured that the Jun family's strength had reached a level where they could deal with any changes. If they still remained quiet like that and continued to stay in the shadows, it would be too much of a waste of heavenly treasures. The most important thing was that it was now the crucial time when the war for seizing the heavens was about to happen. Announcing the establishment of their own faction at this timing was the most advantageous. The three Holy Lands would have to suffer humiliation, but would not dare to do anything, even needing to take extra effort to butter up to the Jun family. There was another reason. Jun Moxie was assumed to be in the Misty Illusory Manor right now. With the strength of the Misty Illusory Manor, how could their information network be lacking? How would they not suspect Jun Moxie's identity? How could they not investigate? If the evil monarch suddenly came up with such a high-profile event at this point, no matter how many suspicions there were about Jun Moxie's identity in the Misty Illusory Manor, they should not suspect that Mo Junyi would actually be Jun Moxie. Apart from Jun Moxie, no one else would have those same miraculous abilities like him. Since the evil monarch was still in the Xian continent and was announcing his establishment of a faction in such a high-key way, how would he appear in the Misty Illusory Manor? This would be the biggest cover for Jun Moxie's infiltration mission. In the entire Tian Fa forest, only Mei Shuiyan had enough power even among the entire Jun family to make such a decision on Jun Moxie's behalf. On top of that, Mei Shuiyan was the only person who understood the pride in Jun Moxie's heart better than anyone else. When they retreated into Tian Fa back then, it was because the Jun family had been in danger of being hunted down by the three Holy Lands. It was a move done out of desperation and after being pushed into a corner. If Jun Moxie was expected to carry this shame all his life, it was impossible. Jun Moxie might have been able to accept living under the protection of others for a moment, but he would not be able to endure a life of hiding in another's arms. The moment the situation in Tian Fa forest became inverted, and they expected the Jun family to be part of Tian Fa, that would be the day that their relationship would break down. Because it was inevitable that Jun Moxie would one day start his own faction and become independent. As a woman of the Jun family and the #1 beast king of Tian Fa, Mei Shuiyan had also been deliberating over this matter for a long time. But in the end, she still made her decision. After discussing extensively with the 8 great beast king seniors, Mei Shuiyan decided to establish the evil monarch manor, and also put the entirety Tian Fa as part of the evil monarch manor's power. In other words, everything would belong to the evil monarch as the lord. That way, the new power will no longer be under the lead of the Jun family, but under Jun Moxie. This decision was the best method to avoid any conflicts. Because the revival of Tian Fa and the Xian beasts of Tian Fa had been the work of Jun Moxie alone, Tian Fa's millions would depend on the success or failure of one person. Those words were indeed the truth. For Jun Moxie to be called the savior of Tian Fa forest was fully deserving. But this decision could only be made by Mei Shuiyan alone. Only her could do this. No one else could, including Jun Moxie. If it were Jun Moxie himself who proposed this, regardless of his original intentions, he would still be viewed as being ungrateful. Even if he did not request for Tian Fa forest support in his new faction, the Xian beasts of Tian Fa would still see him as a person who wanted to separate from them. The only person suitable enough to do this was Mei Shuiyan. Thus, Mei Shuiyan chose this time to announce the establishment of the evil monarch Manor. From the looks of things, even Jun Moxie himself did not know about this. However, this was a good thing for all sides. If Jun Moxie knew about it in advance, no matter what kind of reaction he gave, it would not be good. But since everything had already been decided and the news had been announced to the entire continent, and the Jun family and Tian Fa were also going to merge into one entity, there naturally needed to be a big enough ceremony. As such, the entire matter had developed like this. Especially after Fatty Tang had heard about the matter and used his wealth to further boost this event up. Just like that, the matter of the establishment of the evil monarch Manor grew more and more dramatic, creating a storm throughout the entire continent. Right now, even though the evil monarch Manor had not been established yet, its reputation and momentum was already unrivaled, to the point where it was even more exaggerated than the three Holy Lands. The most ridiculous thing was that all this had been a result of a decision made at the last minute. Right now, Jun Moxie's heart was filled with all kinds of conflicting emotions. Who would have thought that before he knew it, he had become the lord of one of the 5 strongest factions in this world? Furthermore, it was even one of the strongest one. Tian Fa might still lack some true top-tier experts like Saint Venerables and above. However, their foundations were definitely the firmest. With a pill-refining monster like Jun Moxie, he was confident that he would definitely be able to create the most powerful Saint Venerable army in a short time. Jun Moxie sighed heavily. He could feel all the efforts that Mei Shuiyan had put in for him. Mei Shuiyan could be said to have given up all her power and thrown away everything for him. She had even considered the finest details of his feelings. To be able to find a person who truly understood every part of him, and go so far as to give up all she had for him, what else could he ask for in this life? In that moment, even the killing intent in Jun Moxie's heart had disappeared, and he no longer wished to kill Sima Shang. Because right then, he could only feel a content and touching emotion. Fine then. Taking into consideration of the evil monarch Manor's grand establishment, I will give you some face. You just said that it is easy to kill, but one should not go overboard when the purpose had been achieved, right? Fine then. You can kneel properly and kowtow 9 times to my wife here, and admit your wrongs 9 times. After that, you can scram. Jun Moxie raised his hand and casually threw the red copper invitation letter onto the table, causing it to be deeply embedded into the table, such that it was flushed perfectly with the surface. I was wrong. Seeing that his threat had worked, Sima Shang instead grew bolder. Now that you've offended the evil monarch, you still want me to kowtow? If you let me go now, that would be the end of it. If not, Waving his hands, he said, "Even if you killed me to silence me, all of these people here are also going forth to congratulate Lord Jun. If Lord Jun finds out that you not only made things difficult for his guest, and even took their life, what do you think the result will be? Your strength may be great, but are you stronger than the three holy lands?" Sima Shang's goals had been lowered greatly by now. He could clearly tell that this person in front of him was someone he couldn't offend at any cost. He didn't dare to covet after the beauty anymore and only wished to retreat safely. But this place was still his old nest. And if he really kowtowed towards a young girl, begging for forgiveness, he would really lose all his face and standing in society. Pooh! The stone-faced snake queen finally could not bear it and burst out laughing. This matter was simply too amusing. "This Lord Sima, do you know what a fortunate thing it is for you to be able to keep your life today? To actually still want to keep your face as well? I originally didn't want to say anything at all, but you're simply..." Sima Shang hardened his scalp and said stubbornly, "No matter who it is, they definitely need to give old man evil monarch some face. Although your cultivations are high, but, in the eyes of the evil monarch, you're still nothing." With these words, the killing intent in Jun Moxie's heart, which had dissipated, began to rise up again. In this world, just how many people were similarly using his name as a flag to bully the weak? "I did not kill those people, but those people died because of me. If I do not remove such plagues, how will I be able to set my mind at ease?" What a ludicrous joke. Jun Moxie raised his head to the sky and laughed as his killing intent burst out again. Sneering icily, he said, "To dare threaten this seat and this seat's woman with my own name? Sima Shang, your dog-shut guts are truly amazing." As he said that, he'd already stretched one hand out and gripped onto Sima Shang's right shoulder. With a light squeeze, a terrifying sound of bones popping and shattering rang out. With just that light squeeze, a large part of Sima Shang's bones on his right side had already been crushed. However, this level of pain was actually unable to hide the shock and disbelief in his heart. Sima Shang's eyes widened and nearly popped out of his eye sockets. "To dare threaten this seat and this seat's woman with my own name?" What was the meaning of those words? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1073. The monarch arrives. Tian Nan. It wasn't that Sima Shang did not understand, but he did not dare to imagine. He only wished that time would stop in this instant. The others were no fools as well, and they understood in an instant. In that moment, everyone's faces turned pale as they looked at Jun Moxie with horror. This youth before them was actually the legendary evil monarch? Right. According to the rumors, there were some that said that the evil monarch was actually Jun Moxie from the Jun family of Tian. And that third young master Jun was a youngster who haven't even reached 20 years of age. Apparently, this evil monarch was a handsome and intelligent young master with a pretty boy appearance. Could this really be him? At this time, Sima Shang screeched pathetically as the pain from his nerves and bones woke him up from his shock. "Jun! Lord Jun! Old master, spare me, ah!" Sima Shang's body shook all over. Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected that his luck would be this bad. He'd taken out the name of the evil monarch to bully others, but the person he'd been trying to bully was actually the evil monarch himself. This kind of luck was truly too fecking heaven-defying. Just how many bad deeds did his ancestors commit for him to be as unlucky as this? Jun Moxie snorted coldly. not even paying attention Sima Shang's pleading. With a light kick, a bang rang out, and Sima Shang's petrified body was directly smashed backwards with a pathetic scream. His flight path was not completely straight, actually arching through the air as though he was a ball kicked by a famous football star. Curving spectacularly, his body flew out of the window and soared high into the sky before bursting apart like a firework, causing flesh and blood to rain down from the sky. His entire body had burst into fragments at the same time, not leaving even a single complete bone. This was the true meaning behind having one's body pounded to pieces and one's bones ground to powder. If anyone else dares to use the reputation of the evil Monarch Manor to commit all kinds of crimes and bully the weak, they will follow the example of Sima Shang. Jun Moxie said coldly. These people had not shown any intentions of colluding with Sima Shang in his villainy, and had even tried to stop him, so Jun Moxie would naturally not make things hard for them. Everyone was as silent as cicadas in the winter. Some of the more timid ones even begun shivering in fear. Jun Moxie's name had already resounded throughout the entire Xian continent, and nearly everyone already knew that this prince of the corrupted world was a world-ending demon that killed without so much as blinking his eyes. And it would be more accurate to say that this was a world-ending evil monarch. After seeing him in the flesh today, one had to say that indeed, to know a man by repute was not as good as meeting him face to face. His real person was even superior to his reputation. Jun Moxie stood up slowly and smiled. This seat thanks everyone for your great efforts to prepare for the opening ceremony of the evil Monarch Manor. May everyone have a safe journey. If we are fated to meet, we shall see each other again at Tian. After saying that, he took Green Hunter's hand and looked coldly at the direction where Sima Shang had come from. How's the reputation of the faction that this Sima Shang comes from? Replying to Lord Jun, the faction that Sima Shang belongs to is known to be evil and forceful. But because Sima Shang was already a peak Sky Xian expert, no one could go against them. The Sky Xian expert who had stood out to stop Sima Shang earlier came out again and answered in a respectful manner. I see. So it's a sinful and immoral tyrant who likes to bully others. In that case, there's no need for them to exist anymore. Jun Moxie said in a bland manner. Holding Green Hunter's hand, the pair disappeared in a flash. Half a second later, a silver ingot flew through the sky and landed on the table that Jun Moxie had been sitting on a moment ago, landing softly without a sound. Even a long time after Jun Moxie left, the crowd remained standing respectfully, not daring to sit. The evil monarch. We actually met the legendary evil monarch who stands at the peak of the entire continent. The few Sky Xian experts were so agitated that even their bodies shook. Because not only had they seen the evil monarch personally, they'd even received an order from him. In that case, there's no need for them to exist anymore. This sentence was undoubtedly an order for them. Sima Shang's faction's end was already destined to be doomed, and they would naturally get to be the ones to destroy it. At the same time, the spoils would also go to them. That was the meaning in the evil monarch's words. This was already the equivalence of gifting them a great fortune. An order by the evil monarch was already far superior to the imperial decree of any emperors in the world right now. From the moment the evil monarch said those words, the fate of Sima Shang's faction had already been decided. If the faction that the evil monarch had described as a sinful and immoral tyrant was still allowed to exist, wouldn't it be a slap on the evil monarch's face? And if that slap was jointly given to him by all of them, who would dare to do that? It was likely that no one would be able to bear that result. Even the three holy lands would not dare. Everyone's eyes grew bloodshot in that instant. If this matter was not accomplished, how would they face the evil monarch when they reached Tian? If that happened, they might not even have the chance to meet him after they reached there. Numerous pairs of red eyes turned towards the direction of Sima Shang's group. In that moment, those hulking guards all took a step backwards in fear. Especially the girl who had eyed the dress greedily. She directly collapsed weakly to the ground. Who would have thought that this matter would escalate to this level because of a woman's love for clothes? How would she know that her entire family would be pushed into an endless abyss because of this matter? So ladies, it's not a crime to like clothes. But do not demand for it forcefully. If your boyfriend ended up being forced to empty their life savings to get the clothes, then it would be better to not have that dress. In that moment, a wave of horse galloping sounds rang out. Look at him. As expected of the evil monarch. He even paid for a meal he ate at the inn. Not willing to take any advantages. How noble and graceful. To pay for one's food was a natural thing. But young Master Jun paying for his meal had actually become a noble action. How understanding and sympathetic of the commoner's hardships. How virtuous, upright, and full of justice. How chivalrous and cool. On that afternoon itself, Sima Shang's faction was directly flattened by the joint attacks of all the other factions, completely disappearing from this world. All because the evil monarch had said, there's no reason for them to exist anymore. The sudden arrival of this news caused young Master Jun, who had intended to stop by at Tianxiang City for a moment, to quickly dispel his thoughts. Jun Moxie and Green Hunter hurried all the way without rest towards Tian. In order to move even faster, young Master Jun even carried Green Hunter on his back, revolving the yin-yang escape art to its maximum speed. He charged forward as if he had mounted a cloud and was riding the mist. As the sights of the clear waters came into view, they could finally see the outlines of Tian. Green Hunter's eyes had even become somewhat painful after being exposed to the fierce winds because of the speed they had been traveling at. Gasping with shock, she shook her head. Brother-in-law, that speed of yours is truly too terrifying. Eldest sister is also good with speed, but even eldest sister would probably be slower than you. Jun Moxie laughed aloud and dashed across the water. What speed? Lass. I'll let you see. Take a good look today. I traveled across the North Sea in the morning and went to Kangwu in the evening. The green snake hidden in my sleeves boosts my courage. Passing by Tianxiang 3 times with no one the wiser. And so I recite loudly as I fly across Tiannan Lake. This should be the so-called poem, right? Brother-in-law is still the most cultured, spouting such beautiful words as soon as you opened your mouth. How wonderful. Green Hunter said with a worshipful expression. But the phrases are somewhat not right. Although I'm a green snake. But I'm on your back, not in your sleeves. Haha. Young Master Jun laughed awkwardly, his face somewhat red. It wasn't because the Snake Queen wasn't in his sleeves. It was because of her praise. Cultured? Was that considered a compliment? Although young Master Jun's face was thick, there was still a limit to it. Even though this brother had plagiarized the poem and adapted it well, it isn't worthy enough to be called cultured, right? After crossing Tiannan Lake and continuing forward for another day and night, Tiannan finally came into view. Jun Moxie was surprised to discover that the normally quiet Tiannan city was suddenly filled with flags all over the place, as though there was a grand festival going on. At the same time, a loud bustling noise could be heard, as though it was the waves on a beach. As he came closer, he could not help but to gasp with shock and rub his eyes a few times. He truly did not dare to believe the sight before his eyes. There were at least tens of thousands of white tents pitched at the south of Tian City, stretching for over 1,000 li. It was as if a huge snowstorm had fallen on this grand festival. On the other side, there was a gigantic tent with a tall flag fluttering in the wind above it. Just from the height of this tent, it seemed to be at least 50 zhang high. From the looks of it, the poles of the tent had been taken from a towering tree that reached into the skies. Just this so-called flag pole would probably have a base so heavy that even over 20 muscular men would not be able to lift together. There were 16 large words, one on the flag, and each word was the size of a house, bright golden in color and dancing mightily in the wind. When young Master Jun saw those words, he nearly fell right out of the sky. The sovereign descends, evil monarch, uniting the pugilistic world, for ages to come. Feck. Did another brother from Earth transcend over here? Such a slogan would cause anyone to think of the legendary Dongfang sect leader. One just thinking about it caused young Master Jun to feel a breeze under his legs, and his chrysanthemum tightened unconsciously. A distance away, countless members of the evil monarch Manor were dressed in different colored clothes and attending to the guests. There were people busy everywhere, as if the entire city was impoverished and were trying to earn money. There were simply too many guests, and they came surging in wave by wave like a tsunami. Before him, Jun Xie was attending to the guests along with his wife. The two of them were filled with a light and cheerful happiness of spring, and their faces were wreathed in smiles. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1074. Reunion. In this period of time, the charity work that Jun Xie was heading had grown incredibly smooth under the support of huge amounts of wealth. Countless orphan children had all been taken in by them, providing them with food and lodging, as well as a place to belong. At the same time, the mental burden in his heart had also lessened greatly. Han Yanyao was also naturally very happy. The shadow that had been in her heart had already disappeared through the innocent smiles on these children's faces. Her face was filled with happiness, and her belly was already bulging a little. From the looks of it, she was pregnant. With a schwa sound, Jun Moxie suddenly appeared before Jun Xie and Han Yanyao. Moxie. Jun Xie cried out with shock and joy after being stunned for a moment. After instructing the disciples beside him to bring the guests into the resting area, which was the huge white tent, he hurried over. Jun Moxie widened his eyes momentarily and looked at Han Yanyao's stomach. Noticing his glance, she lowered her head shyly. All of a sudden, young Master Jun roared. "Third uncle. What happened?" Jun Xie looked at him in a confused manner. "What's going on? You still want to play the fool?" Young Master Jun cried out in an exaggerated manner. "Who beat my third aunt's stomach until was swollen? This is simply too much bullying. This won't do. I'll go and look for that person immediately. Who dares to bully a person of my Jun family? Truly too intolerable. See if I don't fix that guy up." Han Yanyao's face burned bright red, and she held her stomach with both hands, never letting go. Young Master Jun's face was wreathed with worry. "Third aunt. Is it painful? Are you fine? Don't worry. I have the best medicine for pain, just tell me who it is. I'll go and give him a good beating. To dare to bully my third aunt, that fellow is too brave." Han Yanyao's face was so hot that one could fry an egg on it, and she didn't know how to answer. She dug her feet into the ground, as if she was trying to burrow into it. "Ha! With a loud smacking sound, Jun Wuyi's foot landed on Jun Moxie's B*TT as he scolded. Fecking brat. Is your B*TT starting to itch now that you haven't been fixed for a long time? To actually cause trouble the moment you come back? It's one thing to joke around with me, but to ignore seniority and tease your third aunt, your wings have gotten hard, huh? Third Master Jun had only been momentarily confused and had not been able to react at the start. This nephew of his was well accomplished in the field of medicine, so how would he not know about things like pregnancy? Even if he didn't know, he must have at least seen a pregnant woman before. That little brat definitely had hidden meanings in his words. Not mentioning anything, if that kid saw that his family members had been bullied, he definitely wouldn't smile and behave this cheekily. Thus, how would Third Master Jun possibly be polite with this little fellow who was obviously messing around? Jun Moxie yelped in pain and turned around, clutched his bottom with a sly grin on his face. Third uncle, don't be angry. I haven't seen you all for so many days and was beginning to miss you. I was just joking with third aunt. If people within the family don't even make jokes, how would it be fun? And, if you're still angry, you can at most make fun of my wife in the future when I have children. I don't really mind. Jun Wuyi's face turned slightly green as he raised his hand and began to wallop Jun Moxie. As he administered the beating, he panted heavily with every hit. You brat naturally wouldn't mind, but can an elder like me do that? I'm considered from the older generation. And also somebody's husband, make fun of your wife? What nonsense at that? Jun Moxie laughed aloud and pulled Green Hunter's hand as he ran away. Apart from Third Master Jun, there truly seemed to be no one else who could chase this evil monarch around like a rabbit. In the distance, the place which was originally the encampment area of the evil monarch Manor's outer region had now been changed into a stretch of pavilions. The walls were constructed with large green stones that were unusually simple and heavy. With just a glance, it looked deep and solemn with an aura as though it could swallow a person. Before the door, Mei Shuiyan, Guan Qinghan, Du Xiaoyi, and Han Yen Meng were dressed in snow-white dresses with a faint red waistbands around their hips, all standing there with gentle smiles waiting to receive him. The eyes of the four girls were actually all filled with the same pining, the same fervent looks. They were all trying their best to control their emotions, and the eyes of the two little girls Du Xiaoyi and Han Yen Meng were already somewhat red. Few of them had already received the news of Jun Moxie's return and had specially come here to welcome him. Behind the window inside, Princess Ling Meng's tears also welled up in her eyes as she looked yearningly at Jun Moxie. Big brother Moxie! Du Xiaoyi screamed and ran up, laughing and crying. The little lass skipped over from a distance away like a little sparrow. Jun Moxie had not even managed to recover from the sight of the four beauties when he felt a petite ball of fire jumping into his arms. How come you're only back now? Woo-woo. I was almost bored to death here. I even picked up mahjong to dispel my boredom, but who would have thought that I would lose every single round? Even the money I've secretly hidden away is gone, woo-woo. Du Xiaoyi clung to him like an octopus, and rained her little fists on his chest. The more she spoke, the harder she cried. No one would let me win at all. It's all your fault. All your fault. Why didn't you come back earlier? If you were here, I wouldn't have lost so badly. As she cried, she did not forget to wipe her little face on his chest. Jun Moxie carried the cute little lass in his arms as sweat rolled down the back of his head. This lass. Is she crying because she missed me, or is she sadder about her hidden money? Although he shook his head internally, he still consoled. And it's all my fault. All my fault. How much did you lose? Count it all on me. Later on, this hubby will return it to you double. If they don't let you win in the future, I'll help you take revenge. As he consoled her, young Master Jun discovered another shocking matter. The two of them were practically sticking together right now, but he could see that in just these few days that they hadn't seen other. This little lass had already turned into a grown lady. Her originally curvy body had become even more enchanting, enough to steal a person's soul. Just that short moment of hugging was already enough to cause a fire to burn in young Master Jun's heart. Although it was still not to the point where he was pitching a tent in his pants, it was still unavoidable that his blood was flowing somewhat faster. Young Master Jun smiled happily and leaned towards Dugu Xiaoyi's side and whispered into her ear. Wow! I hadn't expected that in just a few days. My little Xiao Yi has already become a grown lady. How are your culinary skills now? Do you know how to cook properly this time? At the very least, you should know how to cook raw grains into rice now, right? Later on, I'll get you to perform a little bit for me. This elder brother is looking forward to cooking rice with you. You big bad is shameless. Dugu Xiao Yi instantly blushed a deep red when she heard young Master Jun mentioning this matter again. How would she still remember to cry? Quickly jumping out of his arms, she escaped far away. At the same time, she could be heard crying out, "Little White, quickly, bite that shameless fellow for me." At the same time, Green Hunter had already dashed forward and was hugging Mei Shuayan tightly. Eldest sister. I've missed you. Green Hunter? It's you. It's good as long as you're back. It's good as long as you're back. Everything will be fine now that you'd woken up. Mei Shuayan hugged Green Hunter in her arms as she said in an equally agitated manner. The good sister that had previously been in a coma had suddenly returned to her. At this moment, Mei Shuayan's heart was bursting with happiness. Her sister had returned safe and sound, and her husband had come back as well. It was really an occasion of great joy for her. Jun Moxie walked up to Guan Qinghan with a gentle smile. Guan Qinghan's eyes were filled with joy as well, but her face was still as cold as ever. However, young Master Jun, whose face was as thick as the city's walls, would definitely not fall for that. The two were already standing quite close initially. With 2 steps, he was already right up against her. Before she could resist, young Master Jun laughed and said in a hair-raising voice, "Qinghan, have you missed me?" Guan Qinghan shuddered and could not help but to roll her eyes. This fellow. Why did he have to say such gross stuff the moment he came back? Is such a question appropriate in front of others? Truly. She didn't know what to say at all. You're back. Guan Qinghan replied coldly. I'm back. Jun Moxie nodded with an honest smile. All of a sudden, he leaned forward and whispered in her ear. Qinghan, can I go and sleep in your room tonight? I've missed you so much in this period of time. Guan Qinghan's ears instantly turned red and she suddenly remembered the night when they were last here at Tian. Gritting her teeth, she scolded harshly. Horrible pervert. Stupid lecher. Her face burning bright red, she escaped as well. Jun Moxie laughed aloud as he watched her running away. I'll let you give me a cold face all day long. See if I don't fix you up in the future. Hello, little lass Han. No, it should be bed-warming lass, Kakik. Little sister Han. Don't forget to prepare my room properly tonight and warm my blankets after taking off your clothes. I've waited a long time for this. You'd better live up to your words. It's already dragged on for such a long time. Since this young master is quite free anyway, let's just do it tonight. Han Yen Meng was about to skip over happily to greet him, but before she'd even come near him, she heard those same words and immediately fled like a little bird. This big bad is still hadn't forgotten about this? My goodness. Another one settled easily. Jun Moxie breathed out a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, having a few wives was still truly quite tiring. The only way was to break up their joint camp and attack them one by one. That was the best way to attack. To have 4 of them coming out to receive him at the same time, while he had another one right beside him, it wouldn't be appropriate no matter who he was intimate with first. Thus, young Master Jun could only defuse the situation first. As for the other matters, there were plenty of time for that. Right now, this was the best move. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1075. Horrifying strength increase. Only 3 of the beauties had been chased away, leaving behind the most difficult one. As he turned around, he spotted Mei Shuayan and Green Hunter standing side by side, staring at him. Green Hunter laughed cheekily and suddenly pushed Mei Shuayan from behind. Caught by surprise, Mei Shuayan stumbled forward. Although Green Hunter's push was unexpected, she hadn't used much strength. With Mei Shuayan's cultivation, not to mention a light push like this, even if it had 10 times the force, she would not fall. But the talented young Master Jun would naturally not let such a good chance slip. His face instantly changing to a flustered expression. He took 1 step forward and held her tightly. With an anxious and exceedingly worried tone, he asked, "How are you, Shuayan? Are you okay? Did you hurt yourself? What's wrong with you, Qian Sun? Is there such a rough way of playing? See how I'll deal with you if Shuayan is hurt." As he spoke, his hands did not stop examining her everywhere for injuries. Mei Shuayan's ears turned red, and it took her a great deal of effort to squirm out of his arms. By then, she was already panting slightly. All the words that she had planned on saying had been forgotten. A peal of soft laughter could be heard from the side. Turning around, the perpetrator, Green Hunter, had already disappeared from the spot. A few beautiful faces could be seen peering sneakily through the flower bush nearby, as if they were watching an interesting show. When they saw Mei Shuayan's piercing stare sweeping over, the laughing sounds instantly disappeared. Why are you stirring up trouble as soon as you're back? Stop messing around." Mei Shuayan controlled her breath and said in a somewhat annoyed manner. Yes. I'll listen to my dear wife's words. If my precious wife doesn't want me to mess around, I won't mess around." Young Master Jun actually stopped in an extremely obedient manner. Mei Shuayan's face turned red as she said coughed. Are you satisfied with this matter of establishing a faction?" Jun Moxie immediately stopped his joking attitude and sighed heavily as he looked deeply at Mei Shuayan. "Shuayan, you've truly put in great cares for my sake." Mei Shuayan smiled warmly. "The 2 of us are already so close. Would I not know what is in your heart? Moreover, you've also mentioned to me before that you wish to be person who sets the law of the pugilistic world." Blinking adorably, she revealed a playful smile. "Today, you already have that kind of power. The person who sets the law of the pugilistic world." Jun Moxie mumbled and smiled. "The whole world shall submit under my rule. In this world, there are only things that you cannot imagine, and nothing that you cannot accomplish. I trust that you can do it for sure." Mei Shuayan gazed warmly into his eyes. Jun Moxie smiled faintly as he leaned closer to her. My dear wife. Let's put those things for later, after we establish the evil monarch manor. Shouldn't we enter the nuptial chamber first, before talking about the other stuff? How would Mei Shui Yan have expected that young Master Jun would be able to switch topics so quickly? Completely talking about a different thing without even a blink of the eye. Unfortunately for him, Great Beauty Mei was not like Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiao Yi, and the rest who only knew how to run away. Pinching the meaty area of his side, she twisted a full 360 degrees and growled. So, how much have you gained from your trip to the Misty Illusory Manor? She also changed the topic in an exceedingly skillful manner. Cough cough, that trip was quite smooth. All my objectives had been accomplished. Jun Moxie laughed awkwardly and coughed dryly in a guilty manner. He had indeed obtained everything he wanted, with some unexpected gains on top of it. The only thing was one of the things he'd gained was somewhat awkward to say. You're truly capable to even manage to get your hands on the 7-colored holy fruit? Mei Shui Yan watched his expression and asked slowly. Cough cough. I got it. I got it. With this evil monarch taking action personally. Not to mention the 7-colored holy fruit. Even. And, so you got your hands on the rainbow holy tree as well? Mei Shui Yan slowed down her words. Cough cough. I got it. I got it, that's only to be expected. With this evil monarch acting personally, I naturally managed to get my hands on that too. Then, the little beauty of the Misty Illusory Manor, did you get it too? Mei Shui Yan's voice suddenly turned sharp, arriving like the force of thunder. How intelligent was Mei Shui Yan? When she saw this fellow stammering and hesitating, she instantly knew that he was feeling guilty. But, what else could he be worried about? There was basically no need to think about that to know. Cough cough. I got it. I got it, this young master is handsome and talented, and would naturally be able to bag the beauty. Young Master Jun nodded repeatedly as he boasted. Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped and gasped. His tongue was tied, and he immediately swallowed back the rest of his words. However, he'd already said what he should have said, and he had also said what he shouldn't have said. Mei Shui Yan's expression instantly turned unkind. So you've really gotten your hands on the beauty? Ah, that. I've really gotten the beauty. I didn't actively chase any skirts. But since ancient times, it's always been the case where beauties cannot resist the charms of heroes. Young Master Jun lowered his head guiltily, as if he were a criminal being tried in court. He would have to bring Miao Xiao Miao out sooner or later, and Mei Shui Yan would find out about this in the end no matter what. At least now, he wouldn't have to wait until the very last minute to panic. Jun Moxie still understood the severity of this matter very well. It's always been the case where beauties cannot resist the charms of heroes, huh? You're truly not being humble at all. Mei Shui Yan's lips twitched helplessly as she sighed. Speaking of which, when will you change this butterfly-attracting character of yours? Her expression turned cold as she narrowed her eyes. So you used those methods of yours to anger and drive them away just now, in order to speak to me about this? Jun Moxie nodded his head with a pitiful look on his face. I can't make any decisions on this matter as well. You'd better gather all of them together and tell it to them yourself. Mei Shui Yan said coldly. I still have other matters to attend to. You had a long journey. Go in and rest first. Shui Yan, you. Young Master Jun wanted to explain a little further, but before he could say anything, Mei Shui Yan had already disappeared. Jun Moxie sighed heavily. Looks like everything is progressing towards a horrible direction. How should he handle this now? Among all the girls, He felt that Mei Shuayan should be considered one of the easiest to appease. But now, even she had overturned the vinegar vat and left. As for the others, there seemed to be no point in even asking. Their reactions would definitely be the same or even worse. Moxie, my son. Hearing the commotion, Dongfang Wen Xian came out of the door. Mother. Jun Moxie's eyes brightened and he hurriedly ran forward. This mother of his was undoubtedly his strongest supporter, always encouraging him to get a few more wives. If his mother could help him to talk to those girls. Dongfang Wen Xian smiled and hugged him tightly, before examining him up and down. After getting a thorough look, she nodded happily. You're getting better and better looking, as expected of the son that I gave birth to. In that moment, Jun Moxie did not know if he should be laughing or crying. Was his mother praising him? Or herself? How confusing. Ah. Following that, Old Master Jun also walked out slowly with a wide smile on his face. After exchanging some words with his family, Jun Moxie finally had time to go over to Tian Fa Forest to check on the changes there. It was one thing if he didn't look, but the moment he looked, he received the shock of his life. It was just a list of names, but it greatly shocked this evil monarch whose name resounded all over the world right now. Ever since Mei Shuayan came back, she'd been using all her effort to increase the strength of everyone in the Jun family. Right now, Old Master Jun had already reached the 3rd level of the Saint Realm, while Jun Wu Yi was even more shocking, directly reaching the Saint Emperor realm. Although Han Yanyao was not as strong as 3rd Master Jun, she'd still reached the peak of the Saint Realm, only one step away from the Saint Emperor realm. Only young Master Jun's mother Dongfang Wen Xian was comparatively weaker. Dongfang Wen Xian had never enjoyed cultivation, and her foundations were not good. But with the help of the pills and natural treasures, she'd still reached the 1st level of Venerable Realm. Guanqing Han was a 3rd level Venerable. As Han Yen Meng had better talent and a stronger starting point, she had actually reached the peak of the 4th level Venerable Realm. As soon as she reached the right mental state, she would be able to break through to the Saint Realm at any time. As for the last Debauchee Yi, she was simply too lazy, and could never quiet her heart down to cultivate. Even with Mei Shuayan's great efforts to stuff all kinds of pills to her, she'd only barely reached the 1st level Venerable Realm. Right now, in the entire Jun family, Debauchee Yi and Dongfang Wen Xian's cultivation was the lowest. Even Princess Ling Meng had already become a 2nd level Venerable. But the one with the most shocking improvements was actually Jun Moxie's personal maid, the little lowly Kur. This lass's talents were excellent, and her heart and mind was firm. In the past, she had already eaten quite a few of young Master Jun's pills, and this time, she directly charged all the way to 2nd level saint. Even slightly better than old Master Jun. Such a shocking result had caused even the normally calm young Master Jun to widen his mouth with disbelief. After she finished raising the overall strength of the entire Jun family, Mei Shuayan gave the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops, as well as Jun Moxie's assassin team, another round of upgrades. If it weren't because their meridians had already reached a maximum limit, these people would have advanced even further. After all, they'd already raised their strengths after pushing themselves to the limit before. In such a short time, their meridians hadn't managed to recover and get used to the vast changes. If they relied on pills and external help to break through again, these people's meridians might end up exploding. But even so, these 300 people had also obtained terrifying results after consuming some medicinal liquid that had been made by powder scraped off the top of the spirit vein fragments. Right now, There were over 70 people with Saint Emperor among the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troop. For the 4th level saints, there were a total of 120. As for the rest, even the weakest had reached the standard of 3rd level saints. As for the old experts Solitary Eagle and Feng Wan Yun, they had already reached the 3rd level of the Saint Emperor realm. Len Ao and Bailey Luo Yun had also attained cultivation of 2nd level Saint Emperors. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1076. 4 mothers lecturing a son, and 7 countries contending for hegemony. Among the entire Jun family forces, only 2 people had not used the pills to raise their cultivation: Tian, Can and DK. Because Jun Moxie had once told them very sternly that as the foundations of their bodies were poor, it was best to raise their strengths using pills and natural treasures only after consuming a marrow cleansing pill. That way, the effects of the pills would be maximized. Thus, those 2 little fellows had been left behind. Truthfully, those 2 little fellows truly had great steadfastness of mind to endure, remaining unmoved even though the people around them were all advancing with the speed of a rocket. They continued to practice harshly, pushing themselves to the limit every day. It was as if the progress of the others did not affect them at all. The one who had improved the most little core, but the person whose strength was raised the most was still Mei Shuayan herself. After having her strength raised once again by the baptism of the spirit vein, she had risen from the peak of the 3rd level of Saint Emperor realm all the way to 1st level Saint Venerable First. Although the number of levels she'd crossed was not that great, her strength had increased by a shocking amount. With just the strength of the current Jun family, it was already more than sufficient to stand stably at the peak of the world. However, this alone was still not enough if they wanted to look disdainfully down at the rest of the world. But if one considered the strength of the current Tian Fa forest as well, it would be a completely different story. After consuming the pills that Jun Moxie had given them, the 8 senior beast kings had already recovered back to their peak strengths. With the addition of the spirit vein's help, they'd all charged all the way to the level of 2nd level Saint Venerable. As for Big Bear and the other new generation beast kings, they had also reached the 1st level of Saint Emperor as well. The several hundred Xian beasts that originally had the strength to transform into human form had also advanced greatly, reaching at least the 3rd level of the Saint realm. This was not just 10 or 8 people, it was over 500 people. However, the strength improvements had also stopped here. Because the spirit vein fragments that Mei Shuayan had brought back had already been completely used up. Apparently, there were still several thousand Xian beasts waiting for their turn in Tian Fa forest. Hearing this figure that wasn't exactly clear, large droplets of sweat rolled down Jun Moxie's back. From the looks of it, this strength is already sufficient to destroy this world. However, this upgrade was not without a price. All those that had advanced had all received a round of heavenly tribulation. In this half a month, the entire Tian Fa forest was filled with dense clouds and endless lightning. There would often be circumstances where tens of people were caught up in the same heavenly tribulation, greatly increasing its fearsomeness. Each of them were struck by lightning so badly that their faces were gray and their hairs were fried. The more serious ones had even been smacked back into their original forms, with injuries all over their bodies. Even Big Bear had all his fat fried clean, nearly losing his life. Apparently, this fellow had been overly exhausted after he brought his wife back, resulting in his essence being damaged. Even though Jun Moxie had already cautioned them laboriously and given them all kinds of things to help them, 2 people from the Heaven Destroyer team had unfortunately been killed by their heavenly tribulation. As for the Tian Fa Xian beasts, Over 10 had their form and souls extinguished as well. However, compared to the number that was successful in overcoming the heavenly tribulation, that was an insignificant number. Taking the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit that the Xian beasts had been relying on in the past to advance, the percentage of success was only 2 or 3%. Compared to now, the danger level of advancing could be said to be nearly non-existent, with a never-before-seen high rate of success. Jun Moxie's eyes nearly popped out of his head, and it was already a great accomplishment that he hadn't fallen off his chair. Mei Shuayan had only brought back 5, 6 pieces of fist-sized spirit vein fragments, but it had actually achieved such a splendid result. Perhaps splendid was not the right word for this. This result should be described with terrifying. Exceedingly shocking. My goodness. If the entire spirit vein was completely used up, wouldn't he be able to create a 1 million strong army of Saint Venerables? Jun Moxie nearly stopped breathing when he thought of that. However, thinking about it was all there was to it. Young Master Jun would never do such a wasteful thing. Before he could wake up from his shock and joy, young Master Jun was directly grabbed up by Mei Shuayan. Before the eyes of the entire forest, Mei Shuayan carried young Master Jun and pulled him all the way to a small hall. This was a shared living hall surrounded by a few doors. This was a special residence made for the girls, for them to live together. They were all staying in different rooms, with a common hall in the middle. This setup was rather similar to the structure that the 9 Nether First Young Master had left in Blizzard Silver City. A large common area, with many hallways which led to other rooms. With a pu sound, Jun Moxie was thrown roughly onto a small stool before the table. When he looked up, he saw 4 beautiful faces looking intently at him, as if there were 4 mothers lecturing a son. From the looks of it, the trial was about to begin. Mei Shuayan and Guan Qinghan sat in the middle, while Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yenmeng sat at the 2 ends. And looks like these girls have even determined their own positions internally. But this matter doesn't seem to have anything to do with that last Han Yenmeng. What is she to do? As the 4 pairs of eyes bored into him, young Master Jun could not help but to hiccup unnaturally. What is going on? Are they getting ready to administer torture to force a confession? 4 pairs of eyes were locked coldly onto Jun Moxie, and even with young Master Jun's strong will, he felt somewhat Nike'd in front of them. This isn't right. Young Master Jun attempted to struggle. We're all family here. And we share the same blanket, we could have just talked about it privately on the bed, but what is this last doing here as well? He was naturally referring to Han Yenmeng. From the way he saw it, after he said those words, that last Dugu Xiaoyi would probably not be affected, while Guan Qinghan would probably snort and leave given her personality. As for Han Yenmeng, she would most probably leave in rage as well. If everything proceeded as he expected, he would only need to deal with Mei Shuayan and Dugu Xiaoyi for now. That would be much simpler. Because there was practically no need to deal with Dugu Xiaoyi at all. If other girls did not fall for her Jun Moxie, it would instead be more infuriating for her. Big brother Moxie is so outstanding, and you actually don't like him? What is wrong with you? That would leave only Mei Shuayan. It was difficult to clap with only one hand, so without any support, it would be easy to handle her. But contrary to his expectations, although Guan Qinghan's face turned red, she did not move at all. As for Han Yenmeng, she only snorted lightly and raised her chin in defiance. And I've neglected to tell you one thing just now, Mei Shuayan said coldly. Madame Han from the Blizzard Silver City had asked third uncle and third aunt to ask on their behalf for a marriage between you and second young Miss Han Yen Meng. Grandfather and mother have already agreed. With the agreement of the elders and the two sides' parents, the marriage agreement is already settled. Right now, Han Yen Meng is already a part of our Jun family. Xiao smiled proudly and nodded. That's exactly what happened. Now, she even has to call me elder sister. That is the only condition I raised when mother sought our opinion. Han Yen Meng's face turned red and she stared fiercely at Xiao. What are you so proud about? You're not even as old as I am. Don't you feel any shame? Xiao snorted and ignored her. Our Jun family's rule is that whoever entered here first is the bigger one. What does it have to do with age? In any case, this young lady is now your elder sister. Han Yen Meng was completely speechless, and she stared angrily at Xiao. From the looks of it, these two little lasses had quite a bit of quarrels between them. To think you have the face to call yourself elder sister. Which time did you not lose the most when we play mahjong? And to actually have the face to borrow money from me. Han Yen Meng said disdainfully. Xiao gritted her teeth hatefully. If I don't borrow some money, how would I recoup my losses? One would not necessarily lose every gamble. You dang lass. Not even willing to help me win a little. I gave you such obvious hints every time, but you wouldn't give me any tiles. You kicked my legs swollen every time we play mahjong. Do you only know how to speak about others and not yourself? Han Yen Meng rolled her eyes and turned around haughtily. At the same time, she took off her money pouch and shook it with a smirk on her face. A clear clinging sound rang out from inside, and Xiaoyi's eye immediately welled up with tears, as if she couldn't wait to snatch that pouch over. Jun Moxie's eyes widened with shock. So it wasn't just him attracting one outside, there was actually one more gained at home. And he was actually still the last to know. The orders of his parents? Marriage agreement? So this world was also such an imperfect world. No wonder the four of them had come out together to welcome him when he came back. At that time, he thought that the Han lass was only joining in for fun. And I almost forgot. Xiao Yi, go and call Qian Sun and Princess Ling Meng over here. And Kur as well. This matter concerns them as well. And they also have a right to know. Mei Shuayan wielded her authority and instructed in a calm manner. Order received. Xiao jumped up and walked off in a proud manner, as if she was a great general that had been sent off to the front lines. Jun Moxie's sweat poured down his back. From the looks of it, this situation was no longer for mothers lecturing a son. Instead, it had become 7 countries contending for hegemony. In a short time, all the girls had already gathered. When Green Hunter and the rest saw this strange scene, they could not help but to look at each other with some confusion. They completely could not understand the current situation. Sisters, I'm sure everyone knows by now that Moxie went out this time in consideration for all of our futures. Mei Shuayan said lightly. Us Xian cultivators would be able to enjoy an exceedingly long lifespan that could last for even 1,000 years or 10,000 years once we reach the peak. However, the prime years of girls are limited, and it is easy for beauty to fade away. Even a country toppling beauty is not exempt from the withering effects of time. Moxie had went out this time precisely to find some miraculous spirit herbs that could help us retain our youth for a long time. As Mei Shuayan spoke to hear, the entire group gasped aloud. Miraculous spirit herbs that could retain youth for a long time, do such fabled things actually exist for real? Then, Has he found them? Xiao was the most impatient. And she asked first, clearly anticipating the answer. This question of hers also reflected the hearts of the other girls. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1077. What happened next? If he couldn't find it, he probably wouldn't have come back. Mei Shuayan said in a light voice. However, there's another matter that I need to tell everyone. Although Mei Shuayan was speaking in a very formal manner, Jun Moxie still shot her a thankful glance when no one was looking. Mei Shuayan snorted coldly, ignoring him as she continued. Us sisters have gone through many things together, and everyone had already accepted each other. Although it isn't anything strange for a man to have a few wives and concubines, there is still a limit that us girls can accept. Everyone nodded in agreement at this. But this time, although Moxie had found the spirit herbs, something that shouldn't have happened had still happened in that process. Mei Shuayan said coldly. Without obtaining the approval and opinion of us sisters, he actually secretly had some relations with the little princess of the Misty Illusory Manor. Miao Xiao Miao. Although this matter could be said to have happened as a result of many coincidences, but the matter should not have been handled like that. It should have at least gone through a discussion with us. Ah, so that's what happened. Everyone widened their eyes with realization. So this was the reason that everybody had been gathered together. In simpler words, young Master Jun had cheated outside. The girls looked at each other, and they lowered their heads together. No one spoke first. The first one to speak would be hated by young Master Jun, but what should they do then? Besides, although they had been acknowledged by the Jun family, they hadn't actually conducted the formal wedding ceremony. Did they really have the qualifications to speak or be angry with him? But one thing that cannot be denied was that the girls all felt a sour feeling in their hearts now. At the same time, all of them scolded in their hearts. This fickle-hearted fellow. There are so many beautiful flowers at home, but he still went out and picked up some wild grasses, attracting women everywhere. Is it really true that the flowers at one's own home are never as fragrant as those outside? Among all the girls, only Xiao and Kur did not feel much about it. Xiao only thought to herself. It doesn't seem to be a very great matter. My grandpa had tens of women, and my second uncle, third uncle also. Isn't it a very normal thing for men to have many wives and concubines? Why is Big Brother Moxie's face so troubled? What's the big deal about this? Kur was even more exaggerated with her thoughts. Our young master is such an exceptional and talented person who is destined to be unrivaled in this world. It's a natural thing that girls will be attracted to him. If those girls outside didn't fall for him, they would be blind. From the looks of it, these two Lolitas did not even feel the slightest bit of jealousy. In fact, they seemed to be somewhat proud. As for Princess Ling Meng, who was sitting in a corner with her head lowered, her heart was in a state of chaos right now. Why? Why was I also called here? These girls are all women that Jun Moxie had acknowledged. Or his wives in name. He'd never even said that he'd accepted me before. What should I do? Should I leave immediately? But after thinking like this for a long time, she could not bear to move her feet. Even if I thickened my face and stayed here a little longer, I can at least see him for a second longer. The moment Mei Shuayan finished with her words, she was greeted with a field of silence. Laughing bitterly, she said, "So what should we do? Everyone, you should at least say something, right?" The girls looked at each other, but still didn't say anything. After a long time, Guan Qinghan coughed drly and spoke up first. How is the looks of that girl? And how's her character? As she said that, she glanced at Jun Moxie. Moxie is always very principled when it comes to such matters, and he likely wouldn't be moved just because of lust. I'm guessing that there's some other reasons in this. Why don't we let him tell us himself? We'll decide after hearing the entire story. That is good too. Everyone nodded. A light smile appeared at the corner of Mei Shuiyan's lips. The reason she'd called all the sisters together was precisely to help Jun Moxie resolve his problem. Everyone would know about this matter sooner or later, so now was as good a time as any to gather everybody together and reveal it. Furthermore, since everyone was here together, as long as one person said that she didn't mind, the others would be unlikely to object as well. No one would want to seem like a small-minded and jealous woman in Jun Moxie's eyes. Moreover, they hadn't even been married formally yet. Mei Shuiyan's move may seem strict and harsh, but it was actually the best method to resolve Jun Moxie's current headache. What kind of intelligence did Jun Moxie have? He naturally could understand the reason behind this, which was why he was looking at Mei Shuiyan so gratefully. However, Mei Shuiyan still rolled her eyes fiercely. At the same time, young Master Jun heard a faint voice in his ear. This is the only time. No more. Otherwise, you can forget about getting into the nuptial chamber in this lifetime. Jun Moxie shivered heavily as he heard this. This punishment was a little too harsh. And this punishment seemed to be including everybody as well. The matter began like this. Jun Moxie hurriedly explained. However, as he spoke, he felt somewhat uncomfortable. To narrate his love story with another girl in front of all his women, this feeling was really too strange. When they heard that Jun Moxie had been targeted by the Zhan family in the Misty Illusory Manor, the girls were incredibly infuriated, hating that they couldn't be there as well to beat those two little gigolos up ruthlessly. Naturally, when they heard that Miao Xiao Miao had stood out like that for him, they thought much better of her. Only when they came to the part when the competition with the Zhan family was concluded with his win, did they feel more appeased. The numerous pairs of eyes grew colder as they stared at Jun Moxie. With you flaunting so much, displaying so much talent that no one could match, that Miao Xiao Miao is not blind either. It would be strange if she did not fancy you. What is this if it isn't actively seducing women and courting butterflies? Towards the end, when they heard how Miao Xiao Miao's heart had been broken and she even spat out her heart's blood and fell into a coma because Jun Moxie had harshly rejected her, all of them sighed heavily with an sound as a look of empathy appeared on their faces. These girls could all understand this feeling very personally. If they were rejected like that when they loved him so deeply, at the same time, there was a high possibility of being married off to someone whom they didn't like as a marriage offering, they couldn't help but feel a shiver down their spines at the thought. This was really a situation where they wouldn't have any hopes in life. By this point, the attitudes of all the girls had already changed. They even wanted to scream at Jun Moxie to quickly go and save Miao Xiao Miao and had already forgotten that this girl was their so-called wildflower. One had to say. Girls were indeed emotional creatures. When they heard that Jun Moxie had ultimately gone and saved Miao Xiao Miao, Guan Qinghan and the rest heaved a sigh of relief together. After that, they heard how Jun Moxie had met one of the 4 original disciples of the 9 Nether First Young Master, and at the birthday of the Manor Lord, Miao Xiao Miao had attracted a heavenly tribulation after eating a pill from him. These events were all exceptionally shocking and the girls were kept on the edges of their seats. Since it was such a precarious situation, In those circumstances where she was so incredibly touched, it would be strange if nothing happened between them. After Miao Xiao Miao finally passed through the heavenly tribulation successfully, and the two of them entered the spiritual herbal gardens the next day. As he spoke, the girls listened attentively as if they were listening to an interesting story. Dugu Xiao Yi, Kuo, and Han Yen Meng were hugging their knees cutely and listening with wide eyes. When Jun Moxie came to the end of his story, the three of them asked together, "What happened after that?" Jun Moxie nearly fainted. Mei Shuiyan, Guan Qinghan and the rest rolled their eyes and sighed. These three lasses. Did they really think that they were listening to a story? This was a love rival from the outside although it was a very pitiable love rival. But quite clearly, the thoughts of these girls were no longer on this topic or on Miao Xiao Miao. All of them were rather calm. The wood had already been crafted into a boat, and the uncooked rice had already been turned into white rice. What else could they say? They could only accept it. Fortunately, from Jun Moxie's words, this little sister Xiao Miao sounded like a pretty nice person whom they could get along with. The cheating matter had basically already come to an end. Jun Moxie sighed heavily, his heart still conflicted. You girls may be fine, but Miao Xiao Miao still doesn't know that I'm Jun Moxie. This is another emotional knot that I still need to resolve. Right now, everyone was most concerned about another matter. Moxie, does that mean that the 7 colored holy fruits and the exquisite lotus are with you now? With those words, all their eyes shone brightly. This was a miraculous thing of legends that could increase 500 years worth of Xian Qi and retain a person's youth for 500 years. When they thought of how they could live for longer while also retaining their youthful looks, even an icy girl like Guan Qinghan could not remain composed. As long as it was a girl, there were none who would mind being pretty. Does that mean that everybody has no opinions toward Miao Xiao Miao? Mei Shuiyan seized the chance and asked. At this point, no one could be bothered with Miao Xiao Miao. Besides, was there any use even if they were to object? Their man had already been split into so many portions. It wasn't a big deal with he was shared with one more person. The most important thing right now was the exquisite lotus and the 7 colored holy fruit. I do have them here. Jun Moxie rubbed his nose and said. However, an increase of 500 years of Xian Qi and 500 years of youthfulness, those numbers are a bit off. Are they off? Those numbers are passed down from the mouths of the old ancestors, so they might indeed be a bit inaccurate. Mei Shuiyan hesitated and said slowly. How much are they off by? Is the real numbers 300 years? Or 200 years? It's good even if it's 100 years. Dugu Xiao Yi said excitedly. I'll just eat one every 100 years. In any case, we have the tree. It's not 200 years, nor is it 300 years. Jun Moxie raised his hands. It's this. Only 10 years? The girls felt somewhat disappointed. After so much effort, it was only 10 years? This was too much of a blow. Still, even if it's 10 years, it was still better than nothing. As the girls were comforting themselves, Jun Moxie's voice rang out. Why are you all only counting downwards? This is not 10 years, nor 100 years, it's 1 years. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1078. Live together. Grow old together. Wah! A round of gasp echoed out, and Dugu Xiao Yi and Han Yen Meng directly jumped up. 1,000 years. Such a heaven-shocking good news caused all the girls to erupt with joy, and they nearly fainted from the excitement. Eternal youth. And 1,000 years of beauty. Could this be a dream? Even if it's a dream, please let me dream a little longer. Don't wake me up. Since ancient times, beauties and famous generals did not grow to let the world see their heads of white. The merciless blades of time was what beauties like them feared and hated the most. It was undoubtedly the most terrifying thing in the world to them. If they could retain their youthful looks, even if it was for a short moment, countless women would pursue it with everything they have. Things like cosmetics and beauty care products were designed to target this part of a woman's heart, which was why they could see so well. Even if it was only a temporary cover, it was enough to make people go crazy over them. Not to mention a magical thing like this which could maintain a person's youth and looks for 1,000 years. This was something that all the girls in the world would die to get. Even Mei Shuayan also had a strangely agitated look in her eyes. All 7 girls sprang to their feet in an instant as they advanced towards Jun Moxie. All of them were rubbing their fists and rolling their sleeves up threateningly as they threatened. Quickly hand over the stuff. Jun Moxie nearly peed his pants in fear as he backed up against the wall. Who would have thought that these few girls would suddenly explode with such a powerful force? This brother nearly passed out. So the lure of beauty and youth is actually so terrifying. Cornered and threatened, young Master Jun could only take out the previously prepared 5 sets of 7 colored holy fruits. After that, he activated the power of wood in the Hongjun Pagoda and created another 7 sets of fruits. Then, he reached into the exquisite lotus pond and pulled out a comparatively large piece of exquisite lotus root. Everyone, my queens, this little one only has this much. It's all presented before you. This little one does not dare to hide any for myself. Please spare this little one. Jun Moxie served the stuff up with tears in his eyes. From his pathetic form, it seemed as if he'd been robbed 100 times. 7 people. 7 sets of the holy fruit. The huge piece of lotus root was also divided into 7 portions, 1 for each person. The exquisite lotus root that young Master Jun had taken out was truly large enough. Even after being cut into 7 pieces, each piece was still over 3 times the size of the one at the Heaven Saint Palace. Not to mention the size, the effects of it were also vastly superior. For the stuff produced in the Hongjun Pagoda, how would it be of poor quality? Looking at the irresistible temptation before them, the girls could not help but turn slightly short of breath as their faces grew red. Guan Qinghan picked up 1 set and looked it over curiously before bringing it to her nose and sniffing deeply. After that, she looked at Jun Moxie in a queer manner and asked, "N, how come there's only this much? Moxie, aren't you eating any?" For the time being, I only have 7 sets. There's 7 of you here. Just enough for 1 set per person. Jun Moxie replied as he shook his head internally. Does it matter whether I eat or not? I'm not a girl, and I'm not afraid of growing old. Then, an extremely complicated look appeared on Guan Qinghan's face, and her jade-like hands trembled lightly. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and controlling herself forcefully, she placed the 7 colored holy fruits and the exquisite lotus back onto the table. As the 2 items left her hand, one could clearly see the strong struggle in her eyes. However, she still put the 2 miraculous treasures back down and stepped back 2 steps. Closing her eyes, she said with a somewhat pale face, "If you don't eat, I won't eat either." Why? Jun Moxie was truly shocked. When Guan Qinghan put down the 7 colored holy fruits and the exquisite lotus, She had undoubtedly just completed an intense battle in her heart. Anyone with eyes would be able to see how intense that internal struggle was. But Jun Moxie had not expected that Guan Qinghan would actually make such a choice. Why? Guan Qinghan's color slowly returned to her face. However, her forehead was already lined with sweat. Sighing lethargically, she said, "We care about our appearance. But have you considered who it is for? A gentleman will die for the patron who recognizes his worth, and a girl will doll herself up for the man who loves her. The reason a girl wants to protect her beauty has always been for one reason, for the man she loves." Guan Qinghan looked deeply at Jun Moxie and said in a slow manner, "If you don't eat it, you will inevitably grow old. Even if you're not scared of aging, you will still grow old. At that time, even if we still have beauty enough to topple countries and cities, what is the meaning in that? Since you won't eat, I will also refuse to eat. Let us grow old together then. I believe that that is also a very happy thing. Could it be that the words living together to a ripe old age is only said for fun?" Qinghan. Jun Moxie felt a heavy tremor in his heart, as if the oceans were flipping over. He had never thought that the cold and proud Guan Qinghan would actually say such words. This girl, who looked so indifferent, actually held such extreme emotions. For the sake of Jun Moxie, she was actually willing to let go of the chance for eternal youth. She would rather give up her country toppling beauty in order to accompany him and grow old. Sister Qinghan is right. I won't eat it either. This time, it was Han Yenmeng who said that. Following that, Dugu Xiao Yi, Kur, and the rest also placed their portions back on the table. Mei Shuiyan's face was filled with an incredibly touched and relieved look. Jun Moxie felt a sour feeling on his nose, and he coughed lightly a few times to clear his emotions. Smiling lightly, he said, "Ah, you've all misunderstood me. When I said that I wasn't eating it, I meant it as I'm not eating it temporarily. There's only 7 sets right now, but in just a short time, there will be a lot more of this stuff. The 7 of you are just the lucky winners of this first harvest. That's all. Not mentioning the other stuff. We have a living rainbow holy tree right now. Although it doesn't bear a lot of fruit, it's still enough for us to eat, not just us. Grandpa, mother, third uncle, third aunt, and the rest will also get some. It's just a matter of sooner or later. There's another matter. Third aunt is pregnant now, and she cannot consume such stuff yet, in case there's an accident. Let's not tell her for now, until after the child is born. And, at that time, the second batch should be almost ready. We can use it as a present." "You baddie, why didn't you say so earlier? My heart was almost broken just now by having to let go of this thing. Who asked you, big baddie, to be a teensy bit more valuable than these spirit herbs?" Dugu Xiao Yi pouted her mouth and complained. A second later, she laughed happily and beckoned to everyone. Come, come, come. Everyone, come and eat. Elder Sister Qinghan, you should eat quickly as well. From now on, you don't have to worry that there's nobody to appreciate your beauty anymore. Third young Master Jun will be able to admire you till a ripe old age. However, the world will never see a single white hair on us beauties. Haha. Guan Qinghan's face turned red, and she lowered her head deeply. However, her eyes were filled with happiness. She once again held the 7 colored holy fruits and the exquisite lotus tightly in her hands. All right, you should eat it quickly now. Jun Moxie sighed heavily and said as he controlled his emotions. I'll protect you while you cultivate. Later on, the newly acquired energy will charge past the Xian Qi barriers of your body. In other words, it will attract a lightning tribulation. At that time, we'll gather together and go through it together. All the girls nodded their heads. Dugu Xiao Yi, who could not wait, had already popped a fruit into her mouth. Around half a day later, lightning arched across the sky above Tian Fa forest, and the winds and rain fell like a thick wall. That huge storm eye in the sky seemed to be telling everyone, there's someone breaking through here. And it's not just one person. Such a sight was incredibly shocking. Who had ever seen so many people undergoing the heavenly tribulation together? In that case, just how deep was the strength of this evil monarch Manor? The heavenly tribulation lightning fell the entire afternoon, only dissipating when the sky was about to turn black. When the people in Tian Fa rushed to the site, they discovered to their shock that everything was perfectly peaceful. If it was just peaceful, that would be fine. But there weren't any traces of any lightning tribulation there at all. This matter was truly shocking. Such a phenomenon was incredibly difficult to explain. The only possible explanation was that the person undergoing the lightning tribulation did not dodge any of the lightning strikes at all, facing the entire thing fully and also completely dissipating its might such that not even a single shred of it touched the ground. The instant that this only plausible explanation was raised, it was immediately shot down. This explanation that seemed reasonable was simply too ridiculous and completely impossible. No one in the world was capable of doing this since ancient times till now. Even the creator of Xian Qi cultivation, the Nine Nether First Young Master, would likely not be able to do it. However, apart from this ludicrous explanation, was there any other way to explain this phenomenon? On the 7th day of the 6th month, 1.000 li north of Tian Fa forest. As they looked at the endless span of dark clouds and the lightning that fell like rain, Miao Dao and Miao Jian's faces turned heavy. Miao Xiao Miao wore a simple dress and stood behind the two of them, looking curiously at the strange sight. Her expression was exceedingly calm. Although Miao Xiao Miao was already at the venerable realm, her understanding of Xian cultivation was comparatively weak. Although the heavenly tribulation she had experienced that day was shockingly powerful and was fraught with dangers, all the risks had been borne by Jun Moxie alone. She could be said to have walked over a precipice as if strolling on a highway. From what she knew, this heavenly tribulation was still not comparable to her heavenly tribulation that day. Thus, she naturally did not feel much about this. But Miao Dao and Miao Jian was widely experienced. How could they not see the kind of danger in this lightning tribulation? Miao Jian raised his eye and said in a heavy tone, "That is the direction that Tian Fa forest is in. From my estimations, the heavenly tribulation should be taking place at the fringes of Tian Fa forest. If I'm not wrong, someone powerful has broken through in Tian Fa forest." Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1079. Misty Illusory Manor's Plans. Miao Dao nodded heavily and sighed. And looking at the scale of this, I'm afraid there's more than just one or two people undergoing the lightning tribulation together. From the direction that the lightning is striking, and the might of this storm, there should be at least 3 or more people this time. Pausing for a moment, he laughed coldly. Don't those people know that the lightning tribulation will become stronger the more people are involved? If it's not because they haven't failed yet, I would even say that those people are simply seeking death. Not mentioning the other stuff, just the might of that lightning tribulation is clearly already at the Saint Venerable level. But to actually not fail despite such a powerful force, Those people must have absolute confidence to think of using such an unwise method. Ah, Jian. From the looks of it, this Tian Fa forest strength exceeds even our initial estimations. If all of them manage to pass this heavenly tribulation, we'll have to reevaluate our strategy. Miao Jian's expression was also exceedingly ugly. Dao, what should we do if the three holy lands choose to disregard the bigger picture this time? Miao Dao's face also turned ugly. Considering seriously for a moment, he said, I believe that the three holy lands wouldn't really disregard the bigger picture. However, it's impossible for them to not create any hindrances. Their side is already irreconcilable with Jun Moxie's side, and their enmity can be said to be impossible to resolve. If not for the war for seizing the heavens being so close and their strength is already insufficient, they would have already attacked Jun Moxie's side long ago. So, although they would not go so far as to try to smash up this event, they would probably apply pressure in many areas, not allowing this evil monarch to have his way. The opening ceremony has an auspicious significance. If it doesn't start off well, the influence of the evil monarch would not be as great as predicted. At least, it wouldn't be as dazzling as the noontime sun like now. So, if both sides began fighting, the consequences will undoubtedly be very serious. At that time, our positions could become very awkward. Especially now that we'd seen for ourselves the strength of Jun Moxie's side. The moment we make out choice, it would very possibly have a very far-reaching effect on the future. An old man drifted over lightly like a gust of wind, and stood beside the two with a slight smile. There's no need to be overly worried about the actions of the three holy lands. After all, we will not be choosing to stand on the side of the three holy lands this time. Pausing for a moment, he continued. Of course, we won't be standing on the evil monarch's side either. Miao Xiao Miao hesitated for a moment and said, but I'm afraid it would be quite difficult to maintain a neutral position anymore. Furthermore, an action like urging the tiger to devour the wolf is not necessarily beneficial, right? If the two sides are really intent on vying for hegemony over the continent, our Misty Illusory Manor would undoubtedly need to choose a side for support. If we simply watched coldly from the side, it would only gain the displeasure of both sides. No matter which side comes out the victor in the end, it wouldn't be beneficial to the future development of our Misty Illusory Manor. Miao Xiao Miao naturally had her reason for speaking out, and her words were also very reasonable. As the granddaughter of the Manor Lord, it was expected for her to know more of this kind of things. Although she knew that the Misty Illusory Manor could be considered to be self-sufficient on the surface. But there was actually a considerable portion of resources which they still relied on the outside world for. To get their hands on those resources, there was a need for them to have a certain amount of friendship with the main powers outside. Previously, they had already worked with the three holy lands a few times and had built up a bit of relationship with them. The 7 colored holy fruits that Xiaoying had consumed was one such important trade. The three holy lands had a monopoly on all those resources that the Misty Illusory Manor lacked. Although the Misty Illusory Manor was domineering, they could not ignore the outside world and live alone. After all, although the three holy lands claimed to be separate from the worldly affairs, there were still countless large families with considerable strength that were affiliated with them. When added together, the influence and things that they could affect were still extremely terrifying, enough to change the situation of the entire world outside. And the will of these large and influential families could be completely controlled by the three holy lands. Thus, the ability to control the world was actually laying in the hands of the three holy lands. It was just that they had already become used to their position and no longer needed to use those powers. But if they decided to use these powers, it would result in a huge change in the world. Little lass Xiao Miao has worried overly. The points you mentioned are the core of the Misty Illusory Manor. So how would this old man not understand? Ultimately, it is naturally impossible to not choose a side. The old man looked at Miao Xiao Miao with praise as he smiled. But for now, we don't have to truly choose yet. Because we will only be working with the side that wins in the end. There was still another sentence that the old man hadn't said. Although it can't be confirmed right now, but if Jun Moxie is Mo Jun Xie. There was a marriage agreement with the Misty Illusory Manor. But if he loses in this battle, the Misty Illusory Manor won't choose him. This matter concerned the 10,000 years future of the Misty Illusory Manor. It couldn't be taken lightly and changed just because of personal feelings. Miao Xiao Miao nodded in a somewhat confused manner. Although she had detected the contradictory words in the words of this sixth grandpa, she did not continue to pursue the topic. Because all along the way, she had sensed that these few elders seemed to be hiding something intentionally from her. Miao Xiao Miao didn't know what was going on, but she was not that interested in poking her nose into matters that were above her. Although she was the only granddaughter of the Manor Lord, she was still young. It wasn't a big deal if the elders decide not to let her know about certain things. Besides, her main objective in this trip was to look for Jun Xie. That evil monarch fellow had nothing to do with her. It was better if they didn't tell her. At least, she would get to travel leisurely without any troubles. The Zhan family's Zhan Wuyun had come with his brother Zhan Wufeng and 12 other saint-level experts. At this time, they were standing silently behind him. Beside him, there were 2 4th-level saint emperors who were here as his bodyguards. Although the combined strength of the two of them were not greater than Chao Guofeng and the others when they worked together, it wasn't inferior by much either. The lineup that the Zhan family had sent out this time was already sufficient to sweep through this world unrivaled under normal circumstances. If it was not because it was the opening ceremony of the evil monarch Manor, and a strong showing was required, and if not for the other purposes of the Zhan family, Zhan Wuyun would not have sent out such a large force. But when they saw the dense lightning clouds that stretched for 100 li in the sky, all of their faces turned slightly green with fright. The look of fear in their eyes was extremely obvious, even though they were not the ones undergoing the lightning tribulation. The ferocity of this heavenly tribulation was so great that their own lightning tribulations were not even 1% as strong as this. And this exceedingly fearsome heavenly tribulation actually carried on for an entire afternoon. Miao Dao and the rest had also stopped on this mountain 1,000 li away, for the entire duration. Only when night descended did they finally return to their tents. There were 21 people from the Misty Illusory Manor in this trip. The Miao family had Miao Xiao Miao, Miao Dao, Miao Jian, and the 6th elder Miao Zhan. The Zhan family had 17 people, including Zhan Wuyun, Zhan Wufeng, the 2 Saint Emperor guards, and 12 saint experts. The only person of the younger generation from the Zhan family was the previously 3rd-ranked and now 1st-ranked youth, Zhan Yuting. In the Zhan family's Zhan Wuyun's heart, this evil monarch manor opening ceremony was nothing but a simple ceremony for formality's sake. It was a good opportunity for the young generation to broaden their views. Since the deaths of Zhan Yushu and Zhan Qingfeng had already become an unchangeable reality, they could only bring this Zhan Yuting, who had never seen the world, to come out and gain more experience. After all, he now carried the hope and future of the entire Zhan family. In a country of the blind, a one-eyed man would be king. They had already arrived there early noon. Although there was nothing very unique about this area, it was actually the place where the Misty Illusory Manor and the 3 Holy Lands joined up whenever they had to meet up and go somewhere together. For thousands of years, This had already become a habit. So although the Misty Illusory Manor had already reached early, they were waiting for the other three forces. Grandpas, why aren't we moving anymore? Isn't there still a bit of distance till we reach there? Miao Xiao Miao asked in a confused tone. They had rushed here like the speed of lightning all the way, so why did they suddenly stop? From the looks of it, there was still over 1,000 li until they reached the evil Monarch Manor. Although with their speed, this distance could be covered in just a few short days, it was still quite far away. Along the way, whenever Miao Xiao Miao passed by a place with people, she would always ask about Monarch Jun Xie, seeking to find his trial. However, it was destined that no one would know about this person who did not exist at all. Miao Xiao Miao had traveled with endless hope in her heart, but it grew into greater worry as she went along. Little lass, this is the first time you've been to Xian continent, and you naturally wouldn't know. We're waiting here for the three holy lands to meet up with them and go forward together. Miao Dao looked at Miao Xiao Miao and sighed lightly. Although the Manor Lord had mentioned some words to them, and there were even some biases in his words, but if this Tian Fa's evil monarch's faction was too weak, it would instead become a burden to the Misty Illusory Manor. At that time, Miao Xiao Miao's love affair might have to be sacrificed. After all, the happiness of a little girl was truly insignificant compared to the entire Misty Illusory Manor. The only hope was that Monarch Jun Xie was not Jun Moxie. If that was the case, all the problems would be easily solved. The Misty Illusory Manor could continue working with the three holy lands, and they could force the evil monarch out of the game together. No matter what. That would be an easier choice than joining hands with the evil Monarch Manor to destroy the three holy lands. And Miao Xiao Miao would also be able to obtain her happiness, while the Misty Illusory Manor would not lose their only legendary prodigy with the free and natural physique. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 1080. Using Jun Moxie to crush Monarch Jun Xie to death. Three holy lands? Oh. Miao Xiao Miao suddenly giggled and continued. So it's the three holy lands that were pushed into a corner by that evil monarch with no means of retaliation? I always heard that three holy lands have always been in existence equally famous as Misty Illusory Manor. From the looks of it now. You must not speak of such words. Miao Zhan solemnly stopped Miao Xiao Miao, his tone unusually stern. He said in a low voice. The three holy lands have never been simple. The strongest forces behind the three holy lands, the Heaven Saint Palace, has never intervened in this matter. In other words, what that Jun Moxie has dealt with was merely the peripheral forces of the three holy lands. The strength of the three holy lands, excluding that of Heaven Saint Palace, is indeed not comparable to us. But if Heaven Saint Palace is involved, even us, Misty Illusory Manor, can only face them by going all out. What more that small, tiny, evil monarch? What sixth grandpa means is that the situation is very unfavorable for this evil monarch to open his faction. His current, powerful stage is no more than a pipe dream? Miao Xiao Miao cleverly asked, blinking her eyes. That is more or less what I mean. Looks like you lass were just trying to worm facts out of this old man. Miao Zhan chuckled helplessly. AI, there are no outsiders here, so I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. I truly do not think highly of this evil monarch who has abruptly risen. If the evil monarch only wishes to build his own faction and slowly develop it for fun, as long as he doesn't reveal overly great ambitions or too impressive strength, then he will still be able to maintain it for a few years. But the moment he reveals that he intends to make claims as equals with the three Holy Lands, or does anything unbeneficial for the three Holy Lands, the moment the three Holy Lands are unable to face him on their own, then Heaven Saint Palace will definitely not stand by and continue watching. When that time comes, the one that will be unlucky will only be the evil Monarch Manor. In that Heaven Saint Palace, there are no less than 50 Saint Venerable level experts. And there are already a number of them who have already broken through the realms of a Saint Venerable and gone to even higher levels. Miao Dao said as he sighed. Since the three Holy Lands have such a thick and solid foundation, and they have us as their ally, then why are you sighing for, Grandpa Dao? Miao Xiao Miao had sensed that when Miao Dao was sighing. He took a glance at her. Why? Isn't it all because of you, lass? Miao Dao thought helplessly. But he replied, when two tigers fight, there is bound to be one injured. And right now, it just happened to be right before the war for seizing the heavens. The moment both sides engage in a battle, there will only be chaos in the world. It must be kept in mind that as long as there are endless repercussions of these fights amongst these higher levels, it will affect the entire world. When that time comes, the common people will be caught in the chaos of war for thousands of years again. Didn't Sixth Grandpa say earlier that the Heaven Saint Palace's strength is powerful enough to guarantee victory? Could this evil monarch really have such powerful strength? Could it be that he already has enough power to destroy the three Holy Lands? Miao Xiao Miao picked this point up from Miao Zhan's words. She suddenly felt aghast. Because Miao Zhan had just said, but the moment he reveals that he intends to make claims as equals with the three Holy Lands, or does anything unbeneficial for the three Holy Lands, the moment the three Holy Lands are unable to face him on their own, then Heaven Saint Palace will definitely not stand by and continue watching. This sentence was enough to show that right now, the three Holy Lands no longer had the confidence to win that evil monarch with their own strength. And they need the experts from Heaven Saint Palace to intervene to suppress this evil monarch. That's right. Miao Jian nodded his head solemnly. If the evil monarch really wishes to do so, he will definitely be able to do it. But even if he succeeds, his destruction by Heaven Saint Palace is unavoidable. The moment this battle clashes between the two, both sides will suffer great losses. This is without a doubt. Miao Xiao Miao widened her eyes in shock. But, didn't the rumors have it that evil monarch, Jun Moxie from Tianxiang, is only 20 years of age? He is so young. But is he really this capable? How is this possible? To be more exact, that evil monarch's age is only 18.5 years. He is yet to be 19. The one who said this was the second in command of the Zhan family, Zhan Wufeng. Seeing that there was an interesting conversation here, he brought his grandson Zhan Yuting over and was in time to continue the conversation from Miao Xiao Miao's words. 18.5 years old. Miao Xiao Miao took in a sharp breath. 18.5 years old. This age. It seems that he is half a year younger than Jun Xie, and naturally, making him younger than me by half a year. But look at him, then look at myself. Miao Xiao Miao couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. But she quickly raised her brow and thought. No matter how powerful your Xian cultivation is, you will never be like my Jun Xie. Well versed in all aspects and an expert in every single area. Furthermore, Jun Xie has the legendary free and natural physique. It is just a matter of time for him to surpass this evil monarch in terms of his Xian cultivation. It won't take long for my Jun Xie to crush that evil monarch until he cannot lift his head. This evil monarch can be said to be the #1 prodigy in this world. It has been more than 10,000 years since the existence of Xian continent. But a prodigy like this has never appeared before. Even if it is the Nether first young master, whose achievements are unprecedented, he may not necessarily be unsurpassable. Because even if he had the strength like the evil monarch when he was at that age, if this evil monarch makes it through this hurdle, he may just be another Nether first young master. And even stronger. Zhan Wufeng said nonchalantly. He looked at Miao Xiao Miao and said with a smile, "Young Lady Miao's husband, that young master Mo Junyi with the free and natural physique, can also be considered a rare, prodigal figure in this world. But one's true value can only be determined through comparison. Mo Junyi may be one of a kind, but compared to Jun Xie, they are still worlds apart. One is like a phoenix that soars in the heavens. The other is more like a chicken whose wings have yet to develop." The Zhan family had been completely wiped out in dealing with this free and natural physique Mo Junyi. Not only did they lose two successors they had high hopes in, they also lost a saint venerable expert. Although they all died unclear deaths. But it was ultimately all because of Mo Junyi. The hatred between the two was entrenched deeply. Right now, they finally had the rare opportunity to humiliate him. How could they not make full use of it? Mo Junyi was a prodigy. But right now, there was a great prodigy who was 1,000 times stronger than Mo Junyi. Before this heaven-defying Jun Xie, Mo Junyi may perhaps develop to become powerful in the future. But right now, he was nothing. How could a mere golden Xian's cultivation suffice as anything? He was merely an ant. Zhan Wufeng knew insulting Mo Junyi before Miao Xiao Miao was something that was not suitable for his own status. But he still couldn't help but blurt it out. His tone was extremely genial. And his smile still hung on his face. But his provocation was extremely obvious. "Who are you saying is a phoenix? Who is the chicken?" "You're the bald chicken." Miao Xiao Miao was so enraged that her gorgeous face turned red. Her voice also became sharp as she stared at this third-level Saint Emperor from the Zhan family intently. The chilling look in her eyes was so sharp that this Saint Emperor expert Zhan Wufeng was a little afraid to face it. "Little sister Xiao Miao, who is the phoenix and who is the chicken? Do we really have to spell it out?" Zhan Yuting said with a grin, fanning himself. "As the saying goes, justice is the free will of the people." Jun Xie's reputation has truly shaken the world. Looking down on the world. And with his own strength, he created his own empire from nothing, and is claiming to be equals with the strongest forces of Xian continent, the three holy lands, and stands at the more advantageous position. Whereas your Mo Junyi may have the free and natural physique, but he only has the strength of a golden Xian. And at the most, he only knows a couple of tricks and despicable methods. He probably does not even have the means to fend for himself. Don't tell me that compared to Jun Xie, Mo Junyi is the phoenix. You. Miao Xiao Miao was so infuriated that her body trembled. But her suddenly calmed down and scoffed coldly. "Third young Master Zhan is right. It is impressive and remarkable that Jun Xie has this sort of achievements and strength for his age. Comparing him as a phoenix soaring in the skies makes sense. As to my Junyi, it is true that his wings are still undeveloped. But if Junyi is a chicken, then, what is the Zhan family that has been defeated by Junyi based on his strength alone? The crushed worms under the sharp claws? How could Miao Xiao Miao endure the blatant insults this pair from the Zhan family was hurling at Mo Junyi? She gave a strong rebuttal, spewing all sorts of incisive words. Zhan Yuting couldn't help but be dumbfounded upon hearing this. He had never expected the soft-spoken Miao Xiao Miao was capable of saying such words, and in such an unflinching manner. He couldn't help but turn completely red. After a long while, he retorted in embarrassment. That is because he is lucky. He just happened to meet with his forte. Otherwise, Mo Jun Xie would already be doomed. Oh. I wonder why the Zhan family is so unlucky. Your luck is determined by the wills of the heavens. If even the heavens are not standing on the side of the Zhan family, then what victory or defeat do you speak of? What phoenix and chicken? The frog that at the bottom of the well presumptuously speaking of the creatures in heaven. How truly ignorant. Miao Xiao Miao no longer held back her tongue. Her words are sharp and cutting like knives. Miao Xiao Miao was always sweet-tempered and was never one who was this acrimonious. But the Zhan family insulting Mo Jun Xie was trampling on the reverse scale in Miao Xiao Miao's heart. In such an unrestrained and unbridled manner. But these few sentences of hers, especially if even the heavens are not standing on the side of the Zhan family, had stabbed right at Zhan Wufeng's sore spot. Zhan Wufeng thought of how the Zhan family's 1,000 years of effort going up in smoke. Wasn't it really a case of even the heavens are not standing on the side of the Zhan family? A cold glint flashed in his eyes as his black hair began to rise. This story will be continued to chapter 1081. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.